Whoa.
He did that. It was staged.
It's episode 5 of the Unboxing Podcast.
Are we on 5? Are you sure this isn't
Episode
4?
5.
Sure this isn't 4?
I am absolutely sure.
All right, he would
are
know.
Two dudes making a podcast. Just another two dudes dropping a pod. In a sea of two dudes making a podcast. How will these two dudes ever survive? Welcome back.
That was a kiss for you. Don't play it again.
I'm not.
Yeah,
Welcome
yeah, he
to
says that now.
another episode of the Unboxing Podcast where we shoot the shit with each other for
We
some
unbox human
amount of-
behavior.
is that cerebral?
Yeah, that's what I like to tell
We
myself.
both have degrees in psychology from
not true.
ITT Technical Institute.
I got it from MIT, actually.
Oh,
No, I didn't.
Margarine Incorporated Testimonies.
Terry cloth.
Terry. So last time when we ended, we talked about talking about
answering our first question from my friend Matt.
He said he didn't even really ask a question.
It wasn't really a
He
question.
made a
It was
fucking
basically,
statement.
please talk about music and cardboard.
So
for-
let's start talking about some cardboard. Also,
Yeah,
email
yeah.
us at marklarsmarklarmusic@gmail.com. That's marklarsmarklarmusic@gmail.com. MarklarsMarklar music@gmail.com.
or comment on the YouTube videos, or send us a message on Instagram, or whatever.
And subscribe for more cardboard-related content. So we have a lot of progress made on the most recent episode.
Yeah, we're
that
almost done.
We have been trying to get out for quite some time.
Again, there was once a thought it could have been out by Halloween. Now, that was a stretch, and we knew it at the time, but still, we thought it was attainable.
If everything in our lives had remained exactly the same, that could have happened.
It could have, correct.
But that was not how that played out. So where should we even start with talking about cardboard?
Well, I mean, let's talk about why we do that. Like why we discovered it as a medium, why we kept using it as a medium. We'll just get started talking about it.
I don't really know why exactly we use it as a medium, other than it being cheap and it's available. It
is
was
available. No, it still is. I have plenty of access to cardboard. You have plenty of access to cardboard,
which is fortunate. But at the time, excuse me. At the time, it was incredibly accessible, and we just kind of said, "Hey,
this is free."
Yeah. If we were going to make, we're not animators. That's really what it is. We're not animators, but we wanted to tell a story, and have you ever even thought about having a project for yourself where you said, "Let's get a bunch of people together and make a skit or whatever"? It's like it's not even feasible.
No, it sucks, and it's gonna suck.
That's
what I mean? Like the real idea is that we wanted to do a music video for the Most Useless Machine or whatever, but that happened to be the one we were thinking about at the time. And you said to me, because we were talking about, well, how do we do this? What are we gonna do? And every idea we had was dumb, and we just knew or too much. Yeah, it was not. We were not going to be able to pull it off in a way that we would have, been excited about. And then one day you came up to me and just said, "What if we made cardboard puppets?" And you probably didn't even say puppets. You just said robots, actually. So the song is called Most Useless Machine. So it's about a machine. So you thought we could make robots out of cardboard. You just make boxes. And then you stick it together.
I forgot about that. That's because of the song. So it's just from that.
Yeah, just from that song, the idea to do robots, and we could make them out of cardboard. And I thought that was genius. I was like, yes, not only is that doable, but that's relatively easy, and we don't even need to know what we're doing.
Okay, let's go ahead and bust one myth, and that is relatively easy.
Well, I meant within the frame of...
I agree with you.
Exactly. And also, it would have been relatively easy, except for the fact that you're an insane person. Yeah, because all we had to do, we could have made cardboard stick figure robots.
Who does that?
Yeah, apparently the only other people who do cardboard stuff online is generally like stick figure puppets, or it's an immaculate a dinosaur.
So that was actually, I remember looking it up to see, well, what's out there? What's somebody doing? Am I about to step on the toes of someone, or just like be another copycat cardboard?
Oh, we were
cutout?
very worried, actually. Yeah.
There was like one video of a guy who made like a fucking immaculate dragon that was so completely mobile and
Extremely intricate.
The things that some
Check it out.
people
It's cool.
do with puppetry goes so beyond the Muppets.
Wow, yeah.
But the
And
love,
Muppets are crazy too.
yeah,
Obviously.
well, they are. I'm not for a second knocking any of that and the worlds that they've created and all those different things. But we're not making puppets because of a love for puppetry.
Yeah, and that's also beyond us and what we wanted to do. We wanted something that we could do that would look fun. And would be, again,
Cheap.
and what we thought at the time easy. Now,
Okay,
Yeah.
and I mean, I want to touch on that. I just because it is easy now.
Yes.
But where do you even start with designing something? How do you make a figurine like how do you make a thing move, and how do you hold it all together? And I mean, look, they are made of 3 separate things. It is cardboard, fishing line, glue, and then it's
the
hot
wooden-
glue specifically, and then wooden sticks, which
Yeah.
are just most of the time
Usually paint stirrers
because they're cheap and
Yeah.
they are easily cut up, and they give them to you for free.
Yeah.
Cardboard is free. Nobody wants it. It's endlessly being shipped. I mean, look, we didn't realize the future was brown, but Amazon certainly made it that way.
Yeah, of course. Even if I didn't have a job where cardboard was readily accessible, it's not like we would have any issue from people shipping Amazon boxes,
Exactly. So they're made like somewhat the joints are simple, and they're not so perfectly mobile. It's just enough to get an expression, and like even we're surprised by how alive
it's amazing.
they seem to be.
It's so much so that when we come up with episodes, it takes us a long time to realize we can't make a puppet do that because in our minds they are so alive and you can do anything. You know what I mean? It only comes up when we're building it and we're just like, shit, he needs to move both arms. You know what I mean?
I don't know if you've
why
noticed.
didn't I think of that?
If you haven't noticed, they've only got one arm moving, and the other time they're dangling around like a stroke victim.
Yeah, right.
Because
but they move so perfectly.
Because moving 2 arms is, you got to think up a whole system to make it so that your puppet can move.
That was our drummer. That was the drum bot. Sean bot.
Okay,
yeah.
so Sean Bot, the guy who's not even the drummer in our band,
but is based off an old drummer of mine, Johnny Pop, Eric Askew, if you're out there.
Visually.
It's not personally based off you, but the visuals are.
He's just kind of a character based on some auditions we've had in our life, and he was kind of like he was a joke. He was, joke character. He's a caricature. He's a caricature of just that kind of that guy who's like they're only there for the thing that they're doing currently, and then everything else is like a space cadet kind of a situation.
No, so many of those.
So he was able to move both of his arms, and it was like this
because we needed him to drum.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a swivel. I guess there's a fulcrum point, or no? What's the way to even look at it? There's like a single nail on 2 separate swinging arms.
Kind of things, yeah.
It does. It looks like some pincers,
Yeah.
right? So think of like
It's like a crab claw.
The way that pliers might close themselves and spring back open again, and then each arm is on the furthest extent of that, and like
so you can move them up and down if you swing your hand, if you wobble.
So it's the whole motion was wiggle your hand like a moron, and then pinch your fingers together and unpinch them, and then pinch them together and then unpinch them. This would be so much better with visual aids at this point. But
we could put up actually we have a small video editing. We could put on Instagram.
That would you could do that, but that would all of that would take editing.
Not much.
We don't edit this podcast, so
no. Yeah, I meant like we'll do Instagram shout outs like we did for our 3rd episode, I believe. So we'll if we mention something that needs a visual aid, we'll put it up on Instagram. So go check that out.
So in a lot of ways, what we're trying to tell a story, and that's not even what we meant to be doing. So let's go back to The Most Useless Machine.
We wanted a music video.
We wanted to make a music video. We had thought up lots of different things before doing that music video. We said we actually had a band at the time, and we had a drummer, and we were like, what if we just did the same music video that every band has ever done, where it's your band is there, and then you like theme it to the what's going on there. And we wanted to do the Paperboy music video.
Yes, the Paperboy. We wanted to
and
put
the idea
paper,
was going to be, let's collect a bunch of newspapers and make
put
it
them
so
all
we're
over the walls.
standing in like paper mache newspaper land.
Yeah.
And then like a paper
Exorbitantly
airplane.
would have been a lot of work. You know?
Yes, it would have been. And you know what? It would have been more work than, like, for that one video, than actually like making the smaller figure, because at least you can sit at a bench with these guys. These guys, you can sit down, you can turn on the hot glue gun, and you can work it.
We can be the actors and director at the same time.
The most obnoxious thing about cutting this stuff up is probably the box cutter itself and like ruining the surface that you're cutting it upon.
Yeah, that's true.
So like that's your breakdown over time. It's like the depreciation of a vehicle. But so we wanted to do these live action things, and it just wasn't going to happen. And then we made the music video, The Most Useless Machine, and we had so much fun doing it. We said, well, why aren't they just the band?
Yeah.
Like why? I mean, our whole thing is falling apart. Like we're not doing performances anymore because we're not satisfied with our current situation, but we still want to be doing something. So
why don't we do this? Yeah.
And that sparks why they're called AlexBot and Klagbot. It's not because we see them as ourselves.
No.
It's because when we made them, they were little robot versions of
us in that music video to stand in for us.
And then now they're just their own characters.
I mean, very, very loosely based off our real personalities. You know, it's by no means a 1-to-1, but it might be like a 7-to-4, you know, ratio of our actual personalities to them. But the best part is that, like, you specifically came up, why don't we do cardboard robots? And I thought, that's great. And I felt like I could see the whole thing in my head, and that was awesome. And then we didn't do that because we're all people. We all talk. We all just say things sometimes. And then one day, like probably 3 months later, I get a video from Klag with a little puppet guy. And as you see, Klagbot is that original puppet.
Oh, that's right. He is the first one.
He's the first one, which is why he's all janky and weird.
It's how I learned how to make them work in the first place.
Yeah. And you just sent me that, and I was just like, oh, wow, this is more than I ever expected, and we're running with this, and we're going to keep going.
It took actual research and development, which I like. I feel stupid even saying it because I don't feel like they reflect. I don't feel like they, upon first vision,
like, reflect a lot of engineering. You mean?
It makes me feel insecure about them, and especially when you try and show it to people, there's an insecurity that comes from it because this is. I recognize that this is a love or hate type of a
medium,
thing.
Sure.
You either really like what it is that you're saying and what you're getting. I don't think anybody feels kind of in the middle of the road, and I think it's also kind of tied to like the extensive time. Well, okay, it's like a buildup of the amount of times that people have tried to show you something. I mean, in your entire life.
Absolutely.
You have been shown so many things, and I know this is not just to me. There'll be people send you an email, they send you a text message, check this thing out, oh my God, I love it, and then you see it and you go, I feel bad for you for liking that. And you don't want to feel that embarrassment, so you won't even check it out in the first place, and I don't fault you for it, because it's not your fault.
Of course
it's
not.
It's like loads of other people's faults, and like even if you feel that way about my thing or our thing, which, by the way, you're not listening to this podcast right now,
that's true.
If you do hate the show.
Well, I mean, just it's very, very simple. Just to bring it back to our human behavior discussion, but like it's simply like the person who asked this question, my friend Matt. I met him while I was working, and we both found out we played bass. So of course, you know, that was exciting. You know, for two bass players to be together, isn't that weird? But you know, as you do, you each say, "Yeah, I'm in bands." You know. Because you have to say that. And then when one of you says you want to hear my music, you just, man, what a crapshoot that could be.
It's rough.
It's rough because it's like let's say in the perfect world you respect this person. You don't want that issue of just like, oh, you like Five Finger Death Punch?
Or you
Obviously, if you like Five Finger Death Punch, I'm not talking about you. It's fine.
or you only enjoy the poppiest of pop music because it's what's on the radio.
Yeah, of course. And what a joy it was to actually hear Matt's band. Wonderful pop punk, very well produced and exciting and enjoyable. Made me feel great.
We made a mild drop of notice.
Yes. He is a band called Promise Game.
Promise Game.
Yes.
Yeah. Enunciate the shit out of that one.
Promise Game.
Usually,
like it's like visually as PG. Like something is PG. Like if you put on an album cover or something like that. Anyways, very good. You should check them out. But
wait, that's the same premise as Plasma Gore? What? There's some fucking new movie.
Obviously, there's. Oh yes, yeah, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's a similar thing. But
it looks like
they
PG.
at least came up with it before knowing that movie existed. But yeah.
No, they're actually ahead of the curve on that one.
Yeah, they are. Anyway, check them out. They're really great. But it's always interesting. And the weirdest part about what we do, and Klag's called me on this before, is I'll be like, oh yeah, I make dumb puppet cardboard videos, and he'd be like, why you call it dumb? It's like, because I feel weird telling anybody I do anything creatively. It's awkward. Because one, you're either going to hate it or you're going to like it, and I feel weird being proud of things. It's strange.
No, I understand that completely. And you know what? The other side is puppets are for children. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's the perception.
Yes.
There's no look. The best you had for the best version. I'm sorry. The best version of adult puppets was Team America World Police.
Yeah, of course, obviously. Yeah. Which, I mean, as you can tell, the reason that we decided to turn it from music videos into a show is because we both like things like South Park and everything on Adult Swim, and like obviously obviously our medium is cardboard puppets, but that felt a lot like the original South Park, where they're making it out of like cardboard paper.
That was the original.
The very
original two shorts. There was one short and then the first episode.
Yeah, where they're making it out of the cutouts,
and then after that,
it also feels to me like 12-Ounce Mouse, one of my favorite shows. That's like the shittiest of shitty drawings because he wanted to make a show and couldn't draw really well.
And they made it out of Photoshop. They used Photoshop to change things around to make the characters hop on screen frame by frame.
Felt so much like that it was just a really easy jump to go from, we made this music video that looks really good and is better than anything we could have ever done live. You know what I mean? There's no way if we did anything live, it would have been awful.
And we've had shows live, and we like to put on. We like weird music a lot. Well, weird.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Weird feels like you're tugging your own cock for it.
I know what you mean, but.
To say, oh, I'm into weird music. No, I just because Primus is not all that weird, and we also kind of recognize that there's definitely a Primus influence. There's metal for the longest time. There's metal influence.
Yep.
Frank Zappa and
very much so.
But they're more of an excuse to do what you want rather than necessarily telling for how the music is being presented.
Well, it's also just more,
But let's not get into the music.
Yeah, I know. We could. I could talk a million years about.
And we're still on the subject of the cardboard
feeling
itself.
Weird about stuff, but
well, right. So that was that's the thing. So let's see. Let's get back to doing the first episode. Are we any good at writing? That's the first shot. Is we're gonna put out an episode. Can we even write a coherent episode? Yeah. And by the way, I don't even know how a script is written. Like you what I've heard through the grapevine and from media. From media and people talking about script writing is if you write a script right, like each page equals 1 minute of screen time. So the very first episode was like 11 pages.
Yeah.
And it only came out to like 9.5 minutes. So I was like, clearly I didn't write the script correctly. And also having to stretch it and through editing and
it was also the first time we did it, so we had no idea the challenges. We had no idea, what we were going to cut.
And this is all done in iMovie on a MacBook from 2009 still. Ooh. We haven't upgraded because, again, there's a reason we're making shit out of cardboard.
Yeah. Well, we didn't need to because we're making it out of cardboard.
With a team of people.
Look, we know music. We don't know visual.
But we've seen a lot of media.
Of course. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
we are intelligent consumers of things, so we.
I think we at least break it apart. Like when you're being cheated
Yeah.
I think, well,
It's like
personally,
we know when a
I
shot
feel like
pans
I know.
in why they're doing that. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
something that
Or
kind
like,
of
okay,
idea.
you come
Yeah.
to a scene. Like how is every movie in like the first like 10 minutes? I was just watching a movie called Frozen Ground with Nicolas Cage and
the man himself.
and what's his name? John
Malkovich.
Cusack. John
Okay.
Cusack. And John Cusack's playing a serial killer, and Nicolas Cage is playing the sheriff. And Nicolas Cage is the straight man in this movie.
That's very strange.
John Cusack is the guy who's the wild card. All right? And he did a fantastic job of it. But
I believe it.
at
He's
the
a great
beginning
actor.
of this
Both great
movie,
actors.
within the first 5 minutes, they're setting things up for you. And every movie has a period of time where they have to expound on who the characters are,
the first act.
why they're there, what it is that they're going to do, or something about them. It's like, how do you know what a character is?
It's the story circle, but yeah.
Sure. And I know that's like, what is the Rick and Morty guy? What's his name?
Oh, Dan Harmon.
Dan
yeah.
Harmon's
But
got
I
that
mean,
whole
he
thing about
takes
the story
it. But he
circle.
takes it from John Campbell. I mean, you know what I mean.
Okay.
He obviously
So this is
made
in-
it his own, but
these-
it's a thing. You know what I mean? It's the
So these are things that are in the...
zeitgeist.
Oh, fuck. I was going to say exactly that word and didn't want to sound like an asshole.
Zeitgeist. That's why I said it like that. To lighten your burden over
So-
there, bud.
Thank you. So, what I was going on about was saying that there are these moments in movies where they're expounding on shit. What's the fucking word for it?
I don't know what you're talking
No,
about.
expounding, like when you're explaining a thing. you're like,
Exposition.
Thank you. Okay,
You're welcome.
so exposition.
Expounding on
so,
exposition.
So they have to have a moment of exposition.
Yeah.
And to tell you something, and I swear to God, why the fuck am I so popular now in my life? I've never been the least bit popular with phones.
He's
and
getting angry because he's talking about himself.
That's also true. So now that I've muted that, it was stupid of me to even start doing this. Nicolas Cage's character tells you that he's moving and leaving in the last 2 weeks of his time on the force, and his whole family's uprooting from Alaska to get out of there. And the way that they tell you that is not, I'm moving and it's my last 2
thank
weeks.
God. Yeah.
Okay? Because that's how a stupid movie would tell you that.
Yes, generally,
No,
by and large.
instead, Nicolas Cage can't find the cereal and asks his wife, have you already packed away all the food goods?
Uh-huh.
And then she comes in and says her line, and then he does a follow-up, and the whole thing is a discussion on the implication of parts of moving and not, hey, we're moving. It's like, no, what do they do in every shitty
Again,
comedy?
Show don't tell.
Every
That's like
fucking
that's
shitty
why
comedy,
that is a
they come
lie.
in and they say, John, it's the last 2 days of the thing that's going on, and it's really important that you get your shit together for this.
Not gonna have time.
And then they tell you in just those few moments, this is all of our characters' motivation to be doing anything. Now, I'm not saying that I write things smarter than that. I'm expressing to you
that we notice things like
you'll notice, and it feels good to notice those types of things. So it gives you a feeling that maybe you might have the ability to at least break down what it takes to write a story than attempt to do it. I'm not saying that I know or anything that we're
not saying
writing
we're good.
a lovable story, but it seems like we at least had the ability to make something coherent enough with that first episode. And what was the plot of the first episode? The fucking drummer is suing us.
Yeah.
Is suing us because we made him work on the first music video we made.
And we didn't pay him.
And we didn't pay him. And it's like, well, what the fuck? You know, like when it comes to the music business, like what's one of the big issues that's always going on? If not getting
Money.
fucking paid.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's, talk about Drumbot, right?
Man, drum bot. I think I've mentioned this before.
'Cause we
but
don't
it's
have
so
a drummer.
funny. Yeah, it's so funny that we have drum bot, and so there's many reasons for drum bot. One, we don't have a drummer. What that also meant was we're only 2 people, so it was at the time impossible for us to have more than 2 robots in the scene at once.
It's still impossible. Well,
No, it's not.
We've found ways to do it.
We've found ways to do it, but
But it's always just the 2 of us making the show.
yeah, it's so far. But because of that, we needed a 3rd member because we needed a drummer. And why don't we just make him a box that sits on top of another box? And
That's why he doesn't move.
That's why he doesn't move. It's because he does sometimes when we want to trick people, but by and large, he just
that's a real
teleports
trick.
around. I know. We pull some fishing line that we glued to him. But the best part is that Drumbot has just become this amazing character that we had out of just necessity because we wanted, well, one, we wanted a bad guy in the first episode. So make that the drummer.
Because
why not?
That's plot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Plot
that's
is,
we
here's the problem.
and how do we overcome this problem?
And what's a simple problem to have?
Yeah. And again, in order to get around having too many bots on camera at once, we make one of them not have to be held. He just sits there and he's fine. He's fine. Look at him. He's fine.
He has been foot operated and finger operated.
Yes.
His controls have changed over time, and of course his
Did
whole
we have
personality
the light
is
in the
just,
first episode?
We did.
Okay, good. I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
remember if we, because
There
I
was
know that
no-
was late in making him, but
There
I
was
couldn't-
no light
yeah.
until the first episode. In the music video, he doesn't have a slit for a mouth.
That's true. That's right. The music video, he doesn't have the light. Yeah, but we did it for the first real episode.
Instead, we puppeteered the drum set itself because he plays things through telekinesis.
Through telekinesis, which is also why he's allowed to teleport around rooms
No,
and
there's
places.
okay. Now, let's dispel that. We don't know that.
No, that's true. He could have like rollers underneath him, I suppose. He could be a
Drumbot-
tank.
Drumbot could do.
Drumbot
Whatever.
is everything, and it's so funny that he's most people's favorite character.
He can do. He can do what. He's basically
He's
that
whatever we
character.
need him to be.
Right.
Yes,
he's that
Drumbot,
character. Like
yeah.
if you think of Bender from Futurama.
Yeah,
like,
of course,
What's
yeah.
inside of his chest plate?
Whatever we need.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Whatever
that's-
anybody needs at any given time. Like
There it
sometimes
is.
it's a detailed mess of like, oh, we found a watch inside of you. That's why you're sick. Is it's
yeah.
clogging up your gears. And you're like, wait a minute, a future robot's run on gears internally? Like, what's going on?
Like,
And
why?
then sometimes it's like, oh, I just keep the head of Pavarotti in there.
I mean, why
to-
wouldn't you? I
Only
would.
to replace it with Lucy Liu. Because Lucy Liu is a better head to keep inside of my body. Or like stuff it full of gold.
Yeah, whatever. Anything. Bender can be anything.
So Drumbot
can be anything.
except for things that he can't be.
Well,
he can't
of
be
course.
different than his personality.
What's very interesting is that we've come to know these characters so well. We'll write something in a script and be like, and the other
they
one
even
will be
say
like,
that?
no, he can't say that. No, he can't say. Like, actually, I'll give it away. I'll give a little bit. There's one moment in this new episode that will come out where, in the original script, Drumbot was supposed to say he liked something.
That's right. I did write that.
Well, I wasn't going to point it out.
It's
but it doesn't
okay.
matter.
I wrote it
But
wrong.
the point is, no. The point is I saw that. I was just like, Klag, Drumbot can't like anything. And that's not true. It's just like, he can like the only thing Drumbot
He
can
can't like anything that Clagbot or Alex Bot do.
exactly. Yeah, it can only be his own thing. And it just felt I was just like, no. We have to change that because I just felt so deeply in my core.
It's not even
Drumbot can't be too happy about this.
And he's he's your check on Clagbot and Alexbot as
Of
well.
course, yeah.
Because they're not allowed to be that happy about stuff either.
But they are excited about things,
Sure,
which
they
is
can
different than
be.
happy. But
Yeah.
But Drumbot is a good limiter.
That's
to that.
anticipation for potential, which
Yeah, but
so
that's what I mean,
far has
Drumbot
been
is a good-
squashed in every
Yes,
episode.
of course. Plot. That's half the point. Out of curiosity, before we move on, because we've been talking a little bit about this, and we don't want to give everything away, do you have any favorite episode or moment you want to call out before we move on?
So I personally feel that the first two episodes are an experiment. That
I still think they're good, but I know what you're saying.
The first one is just not quite long enough and not enough happens, in my own personal opinion. The second one,
The diner, you kidding me? Come on.
goes on too long and has too much dead space for things that I thought were funnier than they actually play out to be.
Sure, yeah.
Just because it's, again, like an experiment. So the first one is not enough to edit. The
Yeah.
second one is too much and not enough editing. The third one, I like everything except for the first speech that I even fucking like wrote. So like before,
remember. What do you
before
mean?
the song plays, we do this whole thing about Clagbot and Alexbot do this whole back and forth thing about selling tickets.
Oh, yeah.
And
No,
and
I
it's
do like that. I do like that.
No, and I'm not saying that I don't like it. I'm just saying that it comes from a place of
Of real anger.
of real anger,
Yeah.
and I think that it's alienating after the fact. I think
You
it's
might be
alienating to
right.
people who aren't in the know. So to start,
might be right.
to start somebody there, it's not a good place, even though the rest of the episode is great. So if I were to suggest to somebody, hey, watch episode 3, it's really great, the fucking whole place burns down, and people, and a
great.
guy dies, which
Great.
we made a whole set. Okay, we'll talk about episode 3 in a second, but.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
actually a great place to
No,
go.
it is. It is.
Because episode 3, I think, is the moment that we actually really
show.
figured out what the fuck we were doing.
Yeah, 100%.
The first two are an experiment. Episode 3, I actually give a fuck about.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But anyway, so the beginning, I think if you send somebody into, hey, watch Boxed In, it's kind of a funny internet show. They start with episode 3 because it's the most coherent of the first 3 episodes. But the first thing they get hit with is 2 guys screaming about something that only people in bands and who have tried to make it know about.
True.
So where's the connection for your average Joe? The show's not even for that anyways.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like, even though I'm writing something that I know is niche, it doesn't mean that I can't understand what position somebody who isn't that niche is going to feel about it.
And I do think we do it better in the episode with the manager, where that is an opening where, again, we do something that really only people in bands will understand, but I still think it's a bit more available to people who don't understand that, where they're arguing with the manager about, making money and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff.
What is that? The next episode.
Yeah.
Episode 4.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I think...
To answer your question, episode 4 is my favorite episode.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, that's the Finger Family.
That is, yes.
Yeah.
Shadow Puppets, the Finger Family, which is about a cult, and the whole thing was to, so in episode,
we watched Mandy, and we wanted to do that.
Alex watched Mandy.
Yeah.
And said, you need to watch it.
I said we should do a cult. Yeah.
And he said that we have to have a van. Because otherwise he's not in.
Yeah,
so if they don't have a van, he's not in.
Yeah, we had to discover how to make a van, which I still love to this day, the way those vans look.
When we finished episode 4, after all the shit that went into making it, I felt like we had actually gone so above and beyond and like really made something special. I feel like
we thought it was going to be bad.
Yeah.
In comparison.
Because when you get so much, once we had as much stuff going on as we did in that episode.
Again, if you haven't seen it, see it. A place catches on fire.
No, that's episode 3.
Yeah. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's the lead into the next one. You know what I mean? It's like
right.
The episode that we thought was, man, this is so good. How do we top it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something to say in episode 5, we have an episode called Trojan 19, which I currently feel... it bothers me that it's the last thing that we've put out since, and I really want this episode out. I want the episode that we're working on
just
currently.
So our only commentary is not about the pandemic that happens to be currently happening.
Yeah, I want... I felt great about it. And
yeah,
I still
it's
enjoy
still a good
it
episode. Yeah, but it's the fact that it's the only thing out there that's left, and it's still commenting on what's happening.
Right.
When we wanted to get,
we wanted
to put it out.
We wanted to be beyond it 5 months ago when we started writing the next thing, because it was kind of mimetic, or is it a meme? Is that a word? Do I get to say mimetic?
Yeah.
All right, so it's mimetic of a thing, and it's
mimetic polyalloy.
That's great. You created a thing that is kind of poking fun at all the people and everyone involved in a thing that's happening to everybody. But, that's lasts as long as the fucking meme does.
Yeah.
So what can you say? So I feel mildly worried and embarrassed of episode 5.
Still a great episode.
Insecure, but I think it's very coherent and all the beats are good. I think it's a strong episode. It's just not my favorite. I like 4 because it's a wild card of a thing, and
great.
So much crazy
it's
shit
our most
happens in
David
it.
Lynch episode, that's for sure.
And the music
100%.
is really interesting, and
music is great. Yep.
Doom metal throughout the whole thing, because again, it's inspired by Mandy, and they were doing trippy doom metal throughout the whole.
Did I use my upright on that?
You did. You used 2 different basses on that.
I used my upright bass
to make all kinds of like wild sounds.
A lot of fun.
So we go back to you do your bit.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I agree with pretty much everything you said. The only parts I would like to call out, because they're dumb and I want to call them out, is episode 3, the specific transition from outside the bar to inside the bar. I could watch all day. I could watch it all day, over and over and over and over again. And that's literally just when we throw the phone, because it's not a camera, it's a phone.
Yeah, we shoot
We shoot this on a fucking phone. And we literally shove it into a cardboard box that has nothing inside it. And we use the darkness inside it to hide the next shot of us actually opening up into the bar that we built outside of that. And I love the way that that look so much, and I love the way it feels. Like, I knew that I wanted that shot, and the fact that we got it so perfectly is so wonderful.
This brings up something of interest. That is one of the like unspoken rules, unless otherwise necessary. One of the unspoken rules is to try and do everything practically.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%. As much as possible.
Because we're using outdated equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, one, I don't have the background to know really how to do it. I can look up YouTube videos and I can fuck about and go, oh, let's try and do a composite shot with CG. Oh, not CGI, but like green screen editing or whatever.
Yeah.
And no, it's everything is a practical shot. So like when
we also use it
so
as
in
a
episode
crutch.
5, what, doing practical
well,
stuff?
because it's extra funny when it doesn't work. So you know what I mean. So you know.
So when it is shitty.
So when it's a fish on a stick in episode 4, it's a fish on a stick.
We know when it's
funny.
shitty, and we actually revel in the fact that it's shitty.
Yeah, of course.
We think it's better that it's shitty.
Yeah,
because
if it were better, it'd be worse.
It's an expression of our limitations. We know that we're limited. We're not going to try and jump around and pretend that we're better than we actually are. At least we're not trying to. We certainly aren't trying to.
Who knows what actually happens, but whatever.
But the perception is such a funny thing. The shit, man. The fish on a stick. Right.
Fish on a
so
stick.
having that rule of going, okay, how do we get the shot? I was going to say in episode 5, like for the TV, like just the newscaster in the TV, I had to build a frame for the camera, which is in 16 by 9. So I got to figure out how the fuck to frame something in the foreground with something in the background that then lines up into the total back. So he's a set within a foreground set, to line all that up and to do his stupid things. And of course the camera doesn't let you do like mid focus. It's like focus on one thing or focus on another. So everything's just a little bit out of focus on its own. So the whole thing has to be slightly out of focus. And then having the camera not shake around, even though it's on a stand, because it's your fucking phone, it doesn't hold right and whatever. It's just, stuff like that, being like, oh, let's do this practical effect. But to talk about practical effects, episode fucking 3, we burned down the whole venue. And we, of course, we don't talk in the episodes about the episodes. We show bloopers at the end of them to show you the process of how it is that we made this. So you can be like, okay, we're breaking down kind of how it was made. And we're like, okay, I understand that YouTube wants you, or YouTube culture is to ask people to like and subscribe at the end of every episode and tell you to go to your fucking Patreon. It's like, okay, we got 178 subscribers as of today. I'm not telling you to do that. We're not going to break down and do that shit every single time. Because it's like,
one, it's not going to work.
Well,
for us.
yeah.
For
is it
us
really?
Anyway. Yeah.
And also the format is clearly, we think we're late night television. We don't realize that we're on YouTube, even though that's where we're posting it.
We're still on Adult Swim.
We think
we're on Adult Swim in 2003.
2003.
Yeah, that's crazy. We had the great year.
So in episode 3, when we bust through the doors to get into the venue, that venue was going to be burned down from the beginning.
Yeah.
We are clearly, we already had the script. So
we didn't have extra sets at all.
No, we burned that whole thing down, and then we saved like 2 things from it. So I still have a sign that says Johnny Fives, and then a slightly smoldered monitor from when the stage gets knocked over and all that stuff. And like, how does the fire start? Oh, we knocked over some lights. Why did we knock over lights? Oh, because plot has to happen.
Because we wanted fire,
and because they can't have
anything. We
anything.
wanted to burn it down.
And,
like
right.
Part of the point, yeah.
And the characters can't have anything, at least not yet.
Yeah.
That's not because it's a fucking struggle out there, man. You got to hustle.
It's struggle out there.
And these guys are not seeing the fruit of their labor. They're just seeing the labor part.
Of course, again, plot. That's what that's the whole point.
So we burn down that whole thing. We get one chance to burn it down, and we built.
And it turned out great.
We built a puppet who was a part of the band, who wasn't that mobile, just so he could play bass. And then we And then we built
Northwest Southford.
Northwest Southford is his name. It's he's from Northwest Southford Community College. That's where he majored in stuff. So he was built just as cardboard.
Who has a cameo in the next episode, doesn't he?
No, he's in.
No.
He shows up in Moanin' Drone
Yes, that's right.
with angel
Yep,
wings.
That's right.
Because
Motley
he's
Crue.
been brought back to life just to play bass on this one mimetic song.
He'll be a part of the future.
He could potentially. Yes, he very much could be. So in the burning down of things, we had to build another puppet version of him out of something a little bit stronger than cardboard because
He would have burned immediately.
if he burned too quickly, how the hell is it that you're supposed to sit through the horror that is him burning for way too long?
Oh yeah, and I had to point out.
Screaming through it.
I remember I had to point out to Klag before we filmed that. I was like, Klag, he's a robot on a fishing line, right? You know what breaks first in fire?
Fishing line.
Fishing line.
Flammable stuff.
Fishing line don't last long.
So we ended up making him out of a wood block internal to about the same specs, only now his mouth actually opens, trying to recreate him as close as we can to the original thing, which, like, they're not well drawn. They're just little tiny, they're very simple details on three-dimensional characters. They're very simple. And the block version of him has to be controllable from a distance because we're going to light it on fire. So
We had him on a big long dowel.
really long dowel, which would, give you enough time, but also we wanted him to be eventually completely destroyed, you know, and then through the magic of editing. Oh, and we used guitar string because I run a music repair business, so I have guitar strings on hand and tools. And
Guitar strings also don't last in fire.
that is correct. They don't, which I thought they would last longer, but they lasted
knew they wouldn't.
exactly as long as they needed to.
I actually remember showing you. You were like, guitar strings don't do that. And I was like, can I break this string? And you're like, yeah, sure. So I held up a lighter to it. It just immediately popped. But we used a really thick gauge. And again, it worked exactly as long as we needed it to. That is such a perfect scene of him burning.
And then everybody freaking out about it, So obviously we shot all those before we burned down the place. And then I suppose some of the details that were missed were like making it so that that when the boys were standing outside, this was pointed out by my ex-girlfriend. She said, "Oh, they're standing outside in the woods there, but you can't see any fire flaming, or dancing across them. They're just
like, "It's
standing in the
cardboard."
regular woods." And she talks exactly like that, by the way.
Exactly.
Like a strange old Jewish man.
Regular woods.
Hey, there, you can't see the flames. Anyways, so
Move on.
there's a couple of different details, that will whatever. Because again, on a budget, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff
fun.
just doesn't fucking matter.
Also,
And if it does matter to you, you can
know.
always point it out and say, "Hey, this thing is inconsistent," and I'll say, "Yeah, you're right, it is." Do you want to be a part of the show and be only in charge of consistency? Because I'll pay you nothing.
That
to
brings
do
up
it.
another thing. We're almost done talking about cardboard at this point. Well, because we need to
This
save
is why
some
we
magic.
haven't.
Yeah.
This is why we haven't talked about it, is because it's a big, huge subject.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Will
It takes
take
a
up an
long time.
entire podcast.
Yeah, we could keep talking forever. But I will say, one of the best comments we've ever had. Ever.
I know exactly.
I know you know, because it's become a part of a mantra of ours. And if this person happens to be listening to this podcast,
They're not.
I know. But if they are, this is not about you.
Check out the first episode comment section. It's still there.
It's not about you. The first people to comment on our videos of somebody who we didn't know already. Somebody who just discovered us through whatever. And the comment was, I can't remember the exact wording, but the basics of, "Oh, I really like this." And this part is exact wording. "Could use more color."
They actually said it could use more color and depth, though.
Yeah. Could use more color.
So, one of those, I responded back to them and said, "What do you mean by depth?" Because one of those was not a comment that meant anything to me.
And that was...
But the depth was, they basically
makes sense,
said,
yeah.
the depth comment was, "Hey, you should get a better camera."
Yeah.
And all I thought was, "Fucking pay for it, jackass."
Yes, yeah. But there's also the aspect of could use more color. We're working in cardboard. That's the point.
Cardboard does come in different colors.
The point is that it's brown.
Yes, that is. Yeah, they live in a brown world.
It's stylized.
Yes.
That's the point. That's like asking, why is Metallica's music too loud? That's the point. I'm not talking about saying
just a
anger.
weird-
It was too loud.
Let's
I
just
know.
say that was
It's
a
fine.
weird comment, just in general.
It was very funny,
think
and
that
to
Metallica-
this day, when we're making an episode or making a scene, I'll look at it and be like, could use more color.
It's an inside joke amongst the two of us now.
Could use more color.
Which now we're admitting that we read the comment section. So
Of course we do. We've got
What's-
like 9 comments. Don't worry about it.
Totally.
It's not hard to read it.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So
Gwen Stefani.
oh, you fucker.
Sorry.
So does that conclude for now?
That concludes for now. We didn't talk much about music, but that's fine. We can bring that up again.
It's difficult when you're nobody.
I know.
And
I know.
I imagine even when you are someone,
Of
but when
course.
you're nobody and you're sitting here talking about yourself
I could talk about music I like
and
as
music that you like, it's just it feels like masturbating in public. It's like it's wrong,
I would like,
but it feels good.
I actually would like to mention one thing, and that is only recently, and I got to talk about this just about how interesting it is. Nobody out there, hopefully, will know the artist Scott Walker, not Governor Scott Walker. These are different people. We've talked about Republican governors before, so I don't want people to get confused. Scott Walker, an amazing musician, originally in a pop band from around the time of the Beatles called the Walker Brothers. They had a song called "The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore." Just like really, really old school pop. It's still good. Scott Walker was known for having a super deep, bassy voice that was quite beautiful. The only reason I want to mention this is because I have been listening to a lot of music lately, as I do. I do that all the time. But I've been into Scott Walker for many, 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 many years. But I am more of a fan of his later stuff, where he becomes a kind of atonal hermit. Yeah.
Is this some of that banjo stuff you've shown me before?
No.
All right, continue.
No, it isn't. He becomes an atonal hermit, and by that I mean he literally just lives off in the middle of nowhere and has no contact with anybody until he decides to put together an album, and then he hires whole orchestras to come to his house and play with machetes and like you know what I mean, and it's amazing. Bish Bosh is one of my favorite albums of all time. It's insane. There's like 20-minute long songs about a jester in the court of Genghis Khan that eventually becomes a flagpole sitter in the 1920s. Like, I'm just saying, it's insane, and Scott Walker is the best. But the point is, he's always very interested in me because he started on this very, very poppy, like really, again, Beatles-esque, around that same time era stuff. And I've always been very interested in his transition from that to what he became. Also, I would like to point out, he died about 2 years ago. It was very sad because it's awful, and he still had more music in him. But whatever. Scott Walker is one of my favorites. So I've been really, really digging into that transition lately because I have that time on my hands. During the pandemic, instead of just listening to my favorites, I have been actually to talk about it. So where I work has no cell phone service. So what that means is if I want to listen to music, I have to make sure it's downloaded on my phone because I can't stream it.
So this means that you're more methodical about things.
So what it means is most mornings before I go to work, one of the things I do before going to work is being like, oh, what albums should I make sure I downloaded on my phone? Now, I'm not downloading albums, erasing them, re-downloading them. I have many a gig to fill left on my phone. So, but either way, still each morning I'm like, what do I want to listen to? This is what I have. Maybe I'll add these other things. So it's actually been kind of methodical how I've been listening to music. It's really interesting for me. Nobody else. But but the only reason I want to talk about this, and I've been talking too long about it recently, is because I have listened to this before, but the Walker Brothers, not Scott Walker, because the Walker Brothers break up, and Scott Walker actually does a solo album where he covers Jacques Brel tunes, which is great. If you don't know the French singer Jacques Brel, he is fucking phenomenal. But that's like Scott Walker's transition into for lack of a better term, real music. You know, I mean, I'm trying not to be shitty because his older stuff is still really good, but it's a transition into something different. And he's got a couple solo albums that progressively get slightly weirder. But in the middle of those, the Walker Brothers get back together and they release an album called Night Flights. Now, what's really interesting about this is that it's an album where each of the three true members, have a couple different songs. Scott Walker does 4 songs. The guitar player does 4 songs, and the drummer does like 2 songs or something like that. And, you know, they all play them together, but 4 of them are written exclusively by one, you know what I mean? This kind of thing.
It's like the multiple director movie thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like 4 Rooms or something like that. Yeah.
That's a good example.
And, or that weird the Kiss quadruple album where it's each their own album, but smaller.
I don't even know about that.
It's fine. But what's really, really fucking interesting is that Scott Walker has finally come into something of his own here, and none of his other band members have. So you have, and extra weird, it starts off with all 4 Scott songs. So you come
even
in,
break it up.
No.
Oh my god.
It starts off with all 4 Scott songs, and then I think the other ones are broken up between the drummer and the guitar player. What's really, really interesting is that Scott's songs are so good and so different than anything else that when it passes those songs and it becomes something completely different, not bad. You know what I mean? None of the rest of the other songs on the album are bad by any means whatsoever. In fact, if you're a bass player especially, there's really cool bass lines on them. But they're so saccharine compared to like the 4 weird Scott Walker songs on them. Like, it's hard to describe. But like, so that album comes out and the Scott songs on it are so good and so different that David Bowie covers one of them, and it's not as good. Like, that should make you feel something. If David Bowie covers one of your songs and it's, according to me, meh, you know, like you got something special there. So do yourself a favor, listen to the album Night Flights and go on a weird tonal journey.
You just made me think of the System of a Down album, Steal This Album.
Yeah.
Which I didn't get.
B-sides, baby.
I didn't get the information that it was B-sides until you told me that.
I know.
A decade later. So I bought that album when it came out because I was really interested in hearing System of a Down's new album.
Yeah, of course.
With no information whatsoever. And I listened to this thing that actually bothered me towards the end because they had a song that was just like a shitty sort of ballady song.
Which one?
It's the one where they go, I know how I feel
when I'm around you.
And then he says, I don't know how I feel. Okay.
Don't
and
know.
me being whatever age I was,
Yeah,
I remember I had the headphones on. I was in the car with my mom because she bought it for me. And it was like my birthday gift, which is this album. So we're driving around from like a dentist appointment or some shit, and I'm listening to the whole album, you know, on repeat or something. And I'm hearing all these songs for the first time, and I get to the end of it, and it's like you're getting to the weaker and weaker stuff. And that song is playing, and I remember being physically angry at that song for not being able to make up its mind. It just bothered me, the concept in general, which I can understand the concept now. I still think it's weak. I still think it's a weak concept. It's like, I'm flip-floppy on my feelings. Like, I get it. Just another fucking song that tells you, I'm not sure. Life is hard, and sometimes we have to make decisions, and
why it was a
B-side is disgusting.
That's why I didn't get it on a real album.
But if I had known, you know, I still like the Pizza Pie song, but the rest of it's totally forgettable. It's only because it's right there at the beginning.
Mr. Jack rules. Hey, Mr. Jack.
Okay. I'll give you some credit on that.
That rules. No, but yeah, it's just a bunch of B-sides. That's why I
wish I had
do
known,
like
because
that
then
album.
I would have known why.
But because I know that,
also
so
would have
it's just like
stolen
a
the
bunch
album.
of deep tracks. Yeah, you
would have done what they instructed me to do.
I believe I did steal that album. Like, I believe I did.
I mean,
and that was
what
the
they
point.
wanted you to do.
That also brings up, were you, I don't know if you're a Nine Inch Nails fan very much.
I am now.
Okay, that's interesting. I can't say I've always been, but I've been a Nine Inch Nails fan for most of my knowledge of music. One of
the biggest fantasies that I have is like being, if one was going back in time to an era, I wish I could go to like the goth era.
Yeah, of course.
Nine Inch Nails, and be old enough to go drink
To
and
go
do
to those
drugs
parties,
at
yeah,
Nine
yeah,
Inch
yeah.
Nails parties. You know, like during the peak of
with Twiggy Ramirez.
during the peak of New York buying internet stock that's about to explode.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
just
yeah.
that moment where like the first guy who ever streamed himself days upon end, like with camera and like his whole life.
Yeah.
Just before the internet bubble burst, like when people were trying to make television on the internet and it wasn't a thing yet. This is before it was conglomerated into YouTube and homogenized. It was this fucking wild west of disgusting. No, but no, it's not. I'm shitting on them.
I'm kidding.
They are in many ways they're providing the appropriate service that, like, I mean, you know, somebody else would fill the void, but
yes, of course they would.
like, you know, nothing else.
It'd be Google Video.
Nothing nothing else really gives you like the same sort of well, things do, but whatever. That's not what I meant to be talking about. I just meant to be saying I want to do ecstasy at a Nine Inch Nails concert during the peak time of it, and then also have a mohawk.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. I mean, I love that. The only reason I brought up Nine Inch Nails is because they released the album The Slip.
Okay.
Called The Slip for free. 100% for
This is
free.
more recent?
This would have been 2008, 9, something like that.
That's
You know what I mean?
around
Like
the time
later 2000s, not 2010s, I don't believe. I'd have to check. Who the
about
fuck
exactly
knows?
the time
I think
that
it was
can
after high school. But
recognize exactly how lame I was.
uh-huh. Probably. Yeah, it would have been after high school, so probably 2009, maybe 2010, somewhere in there. But the point is that they released it for free, and I don't mean steal this album free where they said, hey, please steal this album. Obviously, Nine Inch Nails, or not Nine Inch, the System of a Down meant that. Like, we don't make any money off this, so fucking take it, who cares? And, you know, that was half the point. That's why it also looked like a burned CD.
And that it's also the B-side, so it's not even stuff that they meant for people
exactly.
to hear.
Yeah, correct.
So that means it's a studio making money off
Yeah.
of them.
So Nine Inch Nails released The Slip for free online. Like, you could literally just download it. You could pay what you want, obviously. You know, they had that. But then, months later, they did release it in stores for regular price, and it sold more than most other albums out at the time. And it's just, that's so funny to
It's
me.
like a try it before you buy it
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. It's so funny to me. I loved that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite concerts of all time was Nine Inch Nails, and Queens of the Stone Age opened up for him.
Oh my god.
And what a fucking show. Man. What a show that was for like 2005 or 2006. It was nuts.
What was your first concert that you ever went to?
My first concert, I am embarrassed. Truly embarrassed. Godsmack.
Well, I don't see being so embarrassed about it at the time.
No, it was not embarrassing at the time. I'm only embarrassed post knowledge of things.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more embarrassing knowing that I think Stained opened. So, you know.
That's actually kind of embarrassing.
Well, it's all embarrassing there.
I mean, how many steps away from Nickelback are you really?
You're very fucking close. Very close.
I mean, those bands are kind of ripping off Nickelback and turning it into a more hard rock thing. No, not Godsmack.
Godsmack's ripping off Alice in
No, but like
Chains.
Stain.
No, they are. Literally, Godsmack is an Alice in Chains song.
Disturbed
it's a title of an Alice in
Disturbed
Chains.
is ripping off Godsmack.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. They're all of the same era.
They're all the
it's
same.
like I don't have the encyclopedic knowledge to know of exactly when it is that
I
they're
do,
showing up.
but
I just
it's
know
fine.
that the army really wanted you to join.
Oh man, that's one of the worst parts about Godsmack. You know?
Okay.
We put that on a podcast.
We clearly you all have just seen Inside of the Skulls that are
We exist.
Yeah.
I did have. So if we're talking first concerts, it was Godsmack, and you know what? I had a great fucking time. The worst part about it, well, the best part about it was that Sully does his drum solo with Shannon Larkin.
Look at me! It's on dolly wheels and remote control.
And there's some bongo drums that I hit with my hands. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of fun.
Same drum solo every time.
I'm getting to that. One of the reasons I'm so embarrassed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that I grew, for the most part of my life, I grew up around a place called Binghamton, New York.
Nobody's ever heard of that.
It's fine. It's about 5 hours from Boston.
That's how people. By the way, that's how people think of locations of all things, as in terms of the diameter.
Yes.
The radius to Boston that it is.
Actually, Binghamton was usually put into we're about 2 to 3 hours away from New York City, depending on where you want to go. But the reason I say we're about 5 hours from Boston is I mean that Godsmack, famously based out of Boston.
Yeah.
Sully Erna is a Boston man.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I say that is because Binghamton was usually their last stop before Boston. They would hit New York City, come to Binghamton, do a show at Binghamton, head up to Boston. That would be their last show of the tour. Boston would be their first and last show of the tour, pretty much every tour, because that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
So they were in Binghamton every year, at least every year.
And you were a
and
very
I went
concert-going guy.
Most years. When I say most years, I mean most. and the only reason I say that and why I'm more embarrassed about it is because the first time was awesome. The second time was great. The third time, I'm just like, this is the same show. And I don't mean that like in the sense of like, oh, the band always sounds the same. Every time they have a new music. I mean, yes, they did Voodoo 2.
Oh my God.
I know. How it's Voodoo 2. How insane. That's insane. It's so insane that they did Voodoo 2. We can't.
For it.
You could, yes, for Unforgiven 3. They did 3. They did Unforgiven 3. Yeah. You could blame Metallica. Voodoo 2 is worse than any of the Unforgivens, but what I will say is that I don't mean it's the same show because it's the same band. I literally mean the first time I saw Godsmack was a moving experience for me because I'm 14 or whatever, 13, 14, right? I'm ready for the power of rock. And by that I mean at some point during the show, Sully Erna, man that he is, Boston man that he is, stands up. He's been standing the whole time. I don't know why I say that. He hasn't been sitting down unless he's behind that drum kit. But he gets up to the front of the stage. He puts down his Zamaitis guitar. He can't play very well. And he looks at everybody in the crowd. And this is a big arena. He looks at everybody in the crowd, looks at everybody in the stands. Well, I don't know why we call them stands, because they're sitting down in them.
Shut the fuck up.
No.
Why don't you park in the driveway and drive in the parkway?
And yeah. Now, and then Sully Erna begins to berate the people in the stands that are sitting down. Because you all came out to this show to have a fucking good time, kid. You all came out here, you're not at your jobs anymore. You're not. I'm doing a bad Sully Erna impression. Don't worry. But you're not at your jobs anymore. You're out here to have a good time, and you're fucking sitting down. I want you all. Everybody down here knows what I'm talking about. I want you all to get the fuck up or get the fuck out. Now, that actual speech is much longer. And how I know that is because the first time I heard it, when I was 13 or 14 years old, really resonated with me. Not only did it really resonate with me, it made me laugh, it made me cry. Oh man, experience every emotion. Until I realized he did that the next tour, that same speech, and the year after that, and the year after that. And probably the year after that. It was about that time where I was like, hey, you know what? I think Sully Erna's lying to me. I don't think Sully Erna believes this shit. I think Sully Erna's got a stage show. And he ain't changing for no man.
It's the day you realize the illusion that's in front of you, and that the guy who's looking into the crowd is not actually looking into the crowd. If you look carefully enough, he's looking beyond the crowd. He's looking into the darkness that is a crowd, because if you're up on stage, you can't see anybody out there, nor do you even have the time to think for a second that any of those people are beyond just an image of a bunch of people. It's not individuals. It's a conglomeration of just amorphous gel.
The difference, and that my biggest gripe with Godsmack is it's literally every show.
They lied to me about how I should feel about Muzak.
And I preface this with the fact that I saw a show where Queens of Stone Age opened up for Nine Inch Nails. Fuck yeah. First of all, that wouldn't happen now. Now Nine Inch Nails has opened up for Queens of Stone Age. Like, that's the way it is. Who would have thought Queens of Stone Age would be would be just under the Foo Fighters for biggest rock band of all time? Yeah, what a weird thing. Yeah. The guy from the lead guitar player of Caius is one of the most well-known lead singers of all time. Isn't that fucking weird? But I only say that because when I saw them, some asshole in the front of the crowd yelled out "Freebird," as they do. And then Josh Homme, God that he is. Please don't do anything too bad so it looks weird that I'm saying that. you know, don't cancel Josh Homme while I'm saying this. God that he is. Then launches the band into a full 15-minute version of Freebird. That was fucking awesome. Like, it was great. I've seen videos of that tour. He didn't do it every show. You know what I mean? The actual Nine Inch Nails video album, I think Beside You in Time, is a filming of that tour I was on, which was very cool. And that's what's about being in the moment. So much fun.
The stage shows, like if you're gonna do the whole drum solo thing, it's supposed to be. I mean, like you're not saying that it's a song. Mm-hmm. So it's a rehearsed bit that you do. It's not special. It's just this thing that you do that's as show offy as being the front man in the first place.
Yeah.
So basically, Godsmack,
more so because you're switching it up.
And Godsmack is just Sully, and the rest of the so they might as well call the band Sully.
Yeah.
And
might as well
stop pretending that it's a rock band because it's just the Sully experience featuring these other guys,
featuring other people. And I actually, man, I shouldn't bogart, but
bands don't all. I mean, not like. One of the reasons why you might be interested in jazz.
Yeah,
is that hey, this whole thing could fall apart any moment.
Yes.
What were you going to say? What do you think?
Well, no. What's very interesting is I was a bass player in high school. It's a dangerous position to be in.
You're still a bass player.
I know, but in high school I was too. But because of that, people knew I played music. So, of course, I wore band T-shirts. Now, at this point, I was kind of past my point of liking Godsmack, but I still had some Godsmack T-shirts. So I didn't also have a lot of money, so often I would wear a Godsmack T-shirt. Because, whatever, it was a cool shirt. Fuck you. It's got the Alice in Chains sun on it. Without the colors. No, it's true. It's the Alice in Chains sun. Anyway, and somebody came up to me from high school who knew me. He's like, "Hey, you play music? You play bass? You got a Godsmack T-shirt on? You good enough to play Godsmack?"
Not in the slightest.
Now, if anybody out there is not laughing. That is only because you don't know Godsmack is a very simple band to be a part of. You are playing open notes, 3rd and 5th frets, maybe 7th if you get a hankering.
The tablatures look like binary.
Yes, it's very, very simple. It's not hard at all. So, of course, I laughed in this man's face and said, of course, I can play Godsmack. I've only been playing 3 months.
You're pompous.
I mean, the joke is that you can play most Godsmack songs if you've been playing at least with some competency for 3 months, and that's not to diminish Godsmack music. I'm just saying it's simple. Simple doesn't mean bad.
I think they've made enough millions of dollars to have one guy on the internet say,
All I'm saying is simple doesn't mean bad. That's all I want to put out there.
I think that's a fair statement to make, sure.
Because what do I do except look up Robbie Merrill, the bass player of Godsmack, and find a fuck ton of him at like jazz expositions going fucking crazy, like being an insanely great bass player.
It's almost like people do things just for the money, man.
It's true, but what that made me realize as a musician is that if he was doing this during Godsmack songs, that would suck. So it was like the first realization of me as a musician being like, oh, don't play every note possible.
Also, all of the things out there that you think are an identity that form upon yourself are actually fake things that are way broader than you have any idea about until they're finally disillusioned upon you.
Of course.
So your favorite bass player who, well, sorry, not your favorite bass player, but
No, he's
the guy who's in that band who puts on a metal image probably doesn't even give a fuck about metal.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that not only was that an identity that I once identified with, but then was an identity that I disassociated with, and then came to realize that so hadn't the person that I'm thinking about in that situation. And isn't that fucking interesting?
I would say so. My first concert.
Your first concert. How long have we been going? I want you to tell the story, but I'm curious.
We're doing okay for the moment. This will probably be one of the last things that we do. Good. So, yeah, definitely one of the last things that we do. And this is pretty short. It was, oh my God, Motley Crue.
Woo! That's awesome.
Motley Crue was the first band. I didn't know shit about Motley Crue.
I
actually did research into Motley Crue to figure out what the fucking concert was going to be that I was going to. I was like 14 at the time. And
research.
I had some friends who just, I guess, came into some tickets somehow, and I was invited along, and that was, exciting and all that to go to my first big giant concert. It's a massive arena. There's chairs everywhere, which surprised me because every video I had ever seen was always standing room only. And we were up pretty close to the whole thing, I guess, probably like 20 rows back from down in the direct center area of everything. And I don't really give a shit about Motley Crue. And they were already to the point where like they're all their bodies were falling apart. But what was really interesting, was exciting to a 14-year-old is I'm at a place that is essentially a strip club at this point because they got ladies wearing all metal gear running grinders on their metal gear parts. Oh, sorry, they're like their fucking crotches. So they're shooting.
They're Metal Gear parts, I believe.
Well, it made it seem like they were robots, which
maybe has something to do with why we make robots.
No, it doesn't.
I know.
So they're shooting sparks everywhere, and even at 14, I was going, like a grinder on metal like makes sparks anyways. Like, what's so special about it being on her crotch? It's like she's essentially wearing a plate to protect herself from the thing, and it's like, I mean,
I think it's cool as fuck today.
What's the difference between holding just a piece of metal near your crotch and wearing it? But whatever. That's not.
I can tell you the difference.
It's exciting to be like, girls, girls, girls.
It's a different thing.
They did this song, Girls, Girls, Girls.
Girls, girls,
and they played pornography on giant screens all over the arena.
Hell yeah.
Which, pornography in the sense of, it's just girls with their tits out,
Yeah.
It's basically the Girls Gone Wild infomercial that you've come across multiple times, except with the stars removed.
Softcore.
Is it softcore? No, softcore is... all right, well, no, there was stuff... yeah, I guess it's softcore. It was essentially a strip club.
Where they're fucking...
No, when you think...
But you can't see any genitals.
There was no fucking, so
Okay.
I guess it's just like centerfold nonsense.
Yeah. Again...
And
Girls Gone Wild videos, how
these
weird
are the
were
things
those?
that I remember about the concert was that, and then it was Tommy...
Lee.
Thank you. Tommy Lee. He has this whole thing where he does some drumming shit, and they had
roller coasters or whatever.
Suspended around the arena different drum sets on, like, from the rafters. And his whole thing for this was to jump from suspended drum set to suspended drum set on wires because he's wearing a suit that's got him suspended. And like, okay, that's fine, but like what we're talking about is like the disillusionment of concert going and music.
That's not hard.
What he kept doing was, like, when you hear somebody curse and you just go, they don't know how curse words work. Like they're new to it. That's what he was doing. No, that's what he was doing. He's like, I'm going to jump from one side to the other. Oh, shit. You're like, yeah, Tommy Lee, you like did...
He's the world's worst actor is what you're saying.
Yeah, you did endless reharsals before this shit, and this is, you've had this set up in multiple towns. Like,
well, they probably did it in Vegas
at this
first.
Point? That maybe, but I just remember it being lame, and I wanted it to be cool.
Yeah,
but it wasn't.
There's a part where it becomes so lame it's cool.
No, it wasn't like that either.
No, I mean, to me now,
what I'm watching,
I'm glad that you saw that because it's cool to me that you saw that.
I'm clearly witnessing the tail end of what was once a neat career.
until the Heroin Diaries came out, and then it got revived.
Okay, yeah. Which, like, okay, that gets hold on, so that gets released, but Marilyn Manson's in trouble. You shit on some other guy's dick. They probably didn't want it. You got Marilyn Manson out here and being like, I got fat from pizza, and then I got skinny again,
he
kind
got real
of.
fat. I have a lot to say about Marilyn Manson, and nothing because of his other things, other than the fact that I'm, the only one thing that I have disappointed in, I can't say it. It's the only thing. The thing I have disappointment
Aside
in
from all the
Marilyn
other
Manson
things to be disappointed
is,
about.
is the fact that he was the one that used to be intelligent.
That's right, because there was that moment in the late 90s when, what was it, Roger Moore released his documentary on school shootings, so the Columbine incident.
Not Roger Moore, fat guy.
Michael Moore.
Michael Moore, there it is.
Michael Moore released his documentary. Where
Roger Moore is also a musician.
Well,
That's
he also
from Pink Floyd.
And he also, Michael Moore did a documentary about Roger Moore.
Did he really?
It's Meet Roger Moore. That's the name of the fucking documentary.
I didn't know
I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Hey,
Look,
keep going.
So the whole, he was the smart guy, right? He was looked up to as, you show up on daytime television stuff, and you
say the thing that's inflammatory, but
they've got you there for shock value.
Yes.
And yeah, exactly. You say that, and what he said, the big quote. Like, okay, for like people who thought Bam Margera was cool and Jackass was cool and all this stuff, the people who grew up in our bit of era now are like, well, there was a moment when Marilyn Manson was seen as this intelligent guy, and the big quote was, what would you say? So he asks him, what would you say to kids today who might be in trouble? And Marilyn Manson just says, I wouldn't say anything. I would just listen. And you're like, how inspired. How powerful. Wow. Wow.
Well, I would
this
say
snake,
at the time it was.
This venomous snake person who all the Christian mothers are scared of said that he would listen to children. Wow. He's got 2 different colored eyes. Wow. He likes to put on makeup before he goes to bed. Wow. He hired a corpse painter to be his personal manicurist.
I would say it was intelligent at the time, especially because he knew exactly what to do to piss off certain people to make him famous, and all that combined together I feel was intelligent. And then he never evolved, and that made me realize, he wasn't that intelligent the whole time.
No,
because the only reason Marilyn Manson, and there's a lot of older Marilyn Manson stuff that I do like, but you realize he never evolved with the time, and it just kept happening, and you'd be like, Marilyn Manson, you're no longer spooky.
And with that, I think maybe we bring
no longer spooky. I would say anybody out there, one of my favorite things I'll talk about at some point is The Young Pope / The New Pope on HBO.
Big recommendation.
Huge recommendation. He makes an appearance in the second season, The New Pope, and oh man, it's one of those so awful it's good.
Wait, Marilyn Manson does?
Yeah.
He's also what's his music videos going on or some shit with porn, fetish porn or whatever, and No Highway or Lost Highway.
Oh, Lost Highway. Yeah, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah, I know, but it's just a random moment when he was at the peak of his
that's
thing.
also very interesting when he's into David Lynch.
By the way, watch Lost Highway if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's a good fucking movie.
As if that's that hard of a
but
recommendation.
what I mean is that fat old Marilyn Manson is in The New Pope, talking to John Malkovich, the new Pope.
I was trying
to write
an album, and it was a pizza joint right down the road. There was a pizza joint, and I had pizza and soda every single day.
Your real name's Brad. Really? Is it Brad? I can't remember. It doesn't matter.
I don't know what his fucking name
Doesn't matter.
Point is, looking into him.
Marilyn Manson is nowhere near as intelligent as I once thought he was, and that's awful.
So write us.
We all grow up. Don't listen to Godsmack, kids.
It's not worth it unless somehow that ends up being an era unto itself, and it's like, remember the 2000s
when the
music?
Navy gets really big.
Oh Jesus! Okay, enough of that. Write us at marklarsmarklarmusic@gmail.com. That's marklarsmarklarmusic@gmail.com.
I'll probably post something on the Instagram.
All right. Good night.